Institutional bias yet again. It might be a different town, but it's the same prejudiced British police. And while most of these protesters were careful about doing anything untoward or illegal, this is Exeter after all, one or two of them just couldn't resist, and they were egging each other on to do something illegal, that is. I spotted one particular idiot working himself up to doing something, and I think everyone else had spotted him too. Carl's team certainly had. And thus began a Benny Hill-style game of kiss chase as he tried to get a clear shot at Carl or Milo, one side of the van to the other, and it went on for at least half an hour.
Now I'm getting taken down. Carry on, Milo.
I'm talking about the bad guys in the Second World War. Oh, well, sorry. We're not. Sorry. Not. I mean the glorious and resplendent religion of peace.
Okay, calm down now. Jesus Christ, I'm not even sure where this is going.
No, you're all right. You're from a safe country. That's very true. And also,
he's scared of Churchill. He's scared of
Say something that matters. Something that has meaning, something that has value, contribute to the public discourse. That's what I'll be doing. Obviously,
I might go get another pint.
But these things have to be talked about. As soon as I become an elected representative, you have the official
I just felt
I left this and I slowly woke up. So how do you feel like you can best connect with people, like from ethnic minorities?
Sorry to interrupt, but look at the little Liberal Democrat in Australia. He's there with a milkshake. He's looking aside. He's moving around.
As you can see, this little TellyTubby in the bright yellow jacket is quite proud of what he's doing. He's doesn't seem bothered that he's been spotted, and he's admitted it. Even Carl couldn't miss him, and he was busy talking and trying to manage proceedings. Even he spotted it. So Carl calls him out, and he raises his milkshake with a big smile. In other words, yeah, I'm trying to find an opportunity to assault someone. I'd been following this twerp around for must have been half an hour to an hour, and I was getting fed up. It looked like he was bottling out, if you'll forgive the pun. But as I learned from him later, he was actually pressed for time. That's why he was getting more and more agitated, running from one end of the van to the other, trying to find a slot. He so badly wanted to get his 10 minutes of fame, especially after all the others in the group with more friends had been jeering each other on and none of them had done it. He wanted to be the one. It was like watching Playground, it really was. And typically, after getting a bit bored, I took a break and went for a quick 5-minute sit down on a bench. And just as I sat down, I heard some jeering from the crowd, and he'd launched his milkshake over Milo and the front of the van and a few other people, and quite a bit on himself too.
Come on. Sorry? Same here. Oh. Another one of our friendly neighbourhood lefties has been very polite and genteel and kind.
Well, my glasses are ruined.
It was the Liberal Democrat who was very angry. Can we get a round of applause for the hero of the Liberal Democrats over there? Bravo for that fantastic argument, sir.
When this incident happened, I was sitting up where the assailant is now, and here's how it looked from my end. Obviously, I knew what he'd done instantly, and I wondered if he might be stupid enough, or arrogant enough, he was both, to believe that I was one of his supporters. So I wandered over to walk with him as he briskly made his way away from the scene. It was quite obvious he was trying to get away without running and making it too obvious that he was shit scared, which he was. I wanted to see if he'd make a confession, so I could make sure the police couldn't dodge the detection and investigation of yet another criminal assault.
What happened? What happened? Did you get him?
I got him.
Who did you get?
Milo.
You got Milo?
Yeah.
Where are you going? You want to see the damage?
Oh no, you're beating up on me.
I will get beaten up otherwise. Isn't that just so typical of these gutless Marxists? The arrogance and the incredible delusion they suffer from. It is unbelievable. So they commit the only physical assault of the entire day but they have to flee. Oh, not because they've just done something wrong. No. Not because they fear arrest. No. Because I might get beaten up otherwise. So suddenly you're the fucking victim. You've just assaulted someone. You can see the footage. Has so much as one person shown the slightest inkling of even following him, let alone beating him up? Well, except for me, that is. I followed him, but he feels safe with me. Nobody even tried to detain him, which they were fully entitled to do lawfully. It just shows what this fascist piece of shit is made of. He walks off and flees the scene of his crime, claiming he's got to go because he might get assaulted. just unbelievable. I tried desperately to persuade him to stop walking. I was just trying to get him to stop and have a chat with me, but he was not going to stop walking. So then I just tried to keep him talking to slow his walk down enough that the police, who I stupidly assumed must be on their way to nick him, so they could catch up with us. More fool me.
Well, I've got to Waterman. I'm going canvassing in the afternoon. Not just holding a rally, but actually knocking doors and talking to people.
He's going canvassing. Not just holding a rally, but knocking on doors and actually talking to people. He says that as if it's both bigger and better than what Carl is doing. Carl is trying to talk to people en masse, not on a quiet doorstep where you can pick the locations you go to, pick who you speak to, and decide how long you speak to them, based on whether they agree with you or not. No, Carl will take on anybody, publicly, in front of all his detractors, and media, and little fuckers with milkshake like you. But somehow what you're rushing off to do is better. I wonder how many people on their doorsteps would talk to you if you introduce yourself. I wonder if the first thing you say is, hello, I'm a man who's just physically assaulted someone in the street. I've just broken the law and criminally attacked someone. I wonder how long they'd talk to you for. I bet you don't do that. And in case you weren't already aware from his behaviour, maybe the yellow jacket, he represents the Liberal Democrats. But we'll come back to that shortly.
I was hoping I'd distract security and they'd go for me and then someone else could have the go, but good luck to you.
You did distract them, but did you actually get Milo or not?
Yeah, all over his jacket as well, his fancy, shiny, expensive jacket. I'm very happy with that, but I am going to leave in case they come following after me.
No, hang on a minute. Hang on a minute, mate.
There's a few things to point out here. First and foremost is the beautiful, frank confession, not just of the assault, but of his motives and his pseudo-communist ideological motive, as in all over his nice, fancy, expensive jacket. Rich fucker, he shouldn't have that jacket, so I'm going to ruin it for him. Doesn't this remind you of something from earlier?
He and his tailored suit became the latest target of milkshaking.
Isn't it interesting how these things correlate? The second point is how he talks about how well he had thought this through. Showing premeditation, by the way, including his hopes that others were going to attack and how his actions could help them do so. And so he explained how he hoped to distract security long enough to create an opportunity for another assault by someone else. Nice people, these Liberal Democrats, aren't they? So tolerant. You were probably focused on his face when you watched this clip, but watch it again and keep an eye on the background. That's where my eyes were. I was gritting my teeth, hoping a police officer would eventually turn up. And eventually that officer did mosey on down, about as slow as he could get without standing still. I'm convinced the reason he did come over is because he could see from a distance my stern stare, which was my way of making it very clear I was waiting for him to get the fuck over here. You'll notice the milkshaker at one point glanced over his shoulder and then quickly moved to my right as if he was going to disappear. And he was. So just as I said, no, hang on a minute, mate, I actually grabbed his elbow pretty firmly, and that was the point. I think he got the message that something funny was going on, and he may actually have to face up for his actions. No thanks to the police, I might add. So the copper wanders over as if he's wading through treacle, and just as he gets close to us, he perks up and puts on a bit of a show. And he's now committed, isn't he? So he's got to do his job now. But boy, if he could have got out of that. I bet he was seething that I forced the issue. But why didn't he, or any of the 8, 10, God knows how many other officers there, along with their 2 meat wagons, why didn't any of them force the issue? They were around that van where he did the assault, and not one of them did a thing. Nothing.
I just think it's still better, my friend. Hello, how you doing?
Do you want to take a seat?
Absolutely.
What's it? Are you alright?
Take the law for pulling.
Oh,
Well, fully cooperate with the
well, you didn't down there, did you?
What?
You didn't down there, did you?
But at this point. At this point.
Oh, right, at this point. What's your name, my friend?
JOEL PUNWANI.
Jonathan?
JOEL.
Oh, J-O... Yeah.
E-L.
Yeah.
And then Punwani.
Right, really?
P-U-N.
Yeah.
W-A. N-I.
What's your date of birth?
13th of April 1999.
You got this gentleman's details? Not yet, right.
No, you're more involved.
And where do you live?
Up in the university.
Coming over there?
No, I wasn't involved. I followed him because he was making off. No one else was following him, so I persuaded him to wait and answer with the police.
What's your name, sir?
I don't want to give you my details.
What happened?
I just heard a big cheer. And he'd been talking about throwing a milkshake, and then he threw the milkshake, and then he told me that he'd got Milo and done what he came here to do, and then he was just leaving. So I thought it looks a bit better if he hangs around and deals with the police, apart from being the lawful way to do things.
Right, yeah, that's told my colleague.
Let me hang on.
Give us a chance. It's your first year.
I said that.
You failed. You went to National Workshop. This guy's doing that. No, not that. Okay, you're free to go.
Thanks.
I'm not sure why, but I got the feeling they were more pissed off with me than the criminal over there. Both officers knew that I had detained him. The first officer saw me do it, and the second one was told by me that I did it. Now, some might question my decision to give no personal details to this officer, which I was not obliged to. Some might say I was an important witness, and indeed I was, but nowhere near as important a witness as the 20 to 30 people who actually saw the offence take place, or Milo, the actual victim that they now know was the victim, or Carl, or the Rev, or, and so on. So my rationale was, I don't give out my details unless I have to, and that's my right. And if they had done what they should have, and what I, in all honesty, actually expected them to do after this, i.e. take details from the victim of the crime and any witnesses to the crime, then I have my footage ready for any court hearing. But before I tell you how that panned out, let's see what the officers say about that, shall we?
Do you think Joel has broken the law? I tell you for a fact, he has. He's committed an assault. I'm not here to take sides, I'm here to try and stop that sort of behaviour. Committed a criminal offence. That's why he's taking his details.
Good luck, Joel.
What's in your face is assault, it's common assault. It's a
Called on me many times.
well, you go in the circus, it's still an assault.
Right.
It's a criminal offence. If you
Joel,
think that's the way for policies to
you're
go.
not an offender, you have committed an offence. You go now, you come back, you will be arrested. On your feet, go.
Thank you.
What's your association with Matey Boy?
I was detaining him for you.
Were you? No, you
What?
weren't.
Yeah, I was.
Oh, really?
I really was.
Thank you
Yeah.
very much. Alright, you a local chap?
Excuse me? How is that the next most relevant question he could have for me? Who the fuck am I? Why is that of so much interest? I wonder. Why not, so what happened, mate? Or, thanks for stopping him for us. These bunions are killing me and I'm just not as fast as I used to be. Or, what did he say to you? What did you see? See, this is another clear giveaway as to what's going through this officer's mind. He wants to know about me. I'm inconsequential here, yet he now has a court case coming up where he'll be required to give his evidence to the Crown Prosecution Service, or at least his bosses, to charge or caution this offender. The first thing he should want from me is any relevant evidence to go with this common assault.
Why was he not arrested?
Because we're here to protest.
When Charlie sees a lovely girl, a girl like yours or mine, he uses a whistle, a wink, and wild root. It gets her every time.
Okay, it isn't fair to pick him up on that, although I wonder if some people might consider that a Freudian slip.
To take two of us away, he has been reported, he will be going to court.
He was sort of saying, I got him.
Yeah,
But Milo, he said, but...
Do you notice the body language? Because I did, standing watching it. When he wants information from me, about me, he was standing facing me, very direct and loads of eye contact and all the good stuff, square on and all that. The very second I changed the conversation to what this offender did and said, he instantly turns away and starts ambling off with a, yeah, well, as if to say, well, I ain't interested in that, job done, I'm going now. But the job is not done. Here you have a key witness who is trying to discuss an assault you are reporting someone to court for, and you can't get away quick enough. If you actually look at his eyes here, you can see it. It's so obvious. He's focusing exactly where his mind wants to go.
He will be going to court, and he will be fined for it.
Right.
And the university will be made aware. So,
Do you... just trying to think whether... it just get reported, will he?
it has been reported.
He will go to court?
Yeah, he will go to court.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
I might contact, I've got a sheet now, but I might contact and see if I've got any evidence that they might want.
All right,
because he did tell me quite a bit, so...
All right, nice one.
All right.
Thank you for your time.
Cheers.
You can probably tell I was a bit flustered there. I was stuck between finding something to say which might interest this officer enough to stop running away and discuss the actual incident with me, and trying to suss out why he was so keen to get away, and so obviously disinterested in the direct quote of an admission to an offence that I'm trying to tell him about. He clearly didn't want any information about this incident. After all, there's a better chance of it all falling through without a witness, isn't there? Ooh, what a cynic I am. Nope. Again, I'm just a realist. And this is where things really start to piss me off. Whenever an offence takes place, from someone being spat at to someone being murdered, the police are duty-bound under statute to do certain things. And they include a statement from the victim, statements from any witnesses, and a few other things. We support victims of crime. Do you? Apparently not. Unless the victim is on your give a shit about list. Police and Crime Commissioner, Jesus. What a complete waste of taxpayers' money. Yet more bureaucracy that serves zero crime-fighting purposes, but a shitload of political correctness purposes. They produce lovely, fluffy, caring crap like this because, as I said, they have to support the victims of crime in lots of different ways. And it scores a lot of brownie points if one force can be more supportive to victims than the next one. It's just the same game that prick in Plymouth was playing. Look at me, I'm the nicest. Seen it a million times, you see it in every organisation now, but the police are just the gold standard for this shit. And this is the Crime Commissioner's job, basically, at every force, to earn 73 grand a year playing this game and playing to win. Hence we get designers spending time and money knocking up logos like this to try and win the game. Here's another one. Hate crime, but only for these groups below. Milo was clearly hated by this assailant and was definitively assaulted by him, which is a crime. That's the fucking definition of a hate crime then. But back to the victim support duties on the police, and just in case anyone, especially coppers, are thinking that you only have to do these things if you have a victim making a complaint, that's bullshit and you fucking know it. You have knowledge of an offence taking place. In fact, come to think of it, you must have seen it yourselves, because you dealt with him, you dealt with Joel before I told you what I'd seen. When I was asked by that sergeant for my details, you were already telling Joel what you were fucking going to do with him, because in fact the first thing you said when he sat down is that he hadn't obeyed the law, so I think you saw what he did. So no, Milo didn't need to make a complaint for you to act, and that's also proven by the fact that you did take action anyway without Milo complaining, didn't you? Yes, if I'd let him wander off, you no doubt would have dodged that particular bullet, but that's what the big society is all about, isn't it? Stepping up for your community to help the authorities catch offenders. Yeah, fucking thank me later. You heard it yourself. The officers said countless times that this was a crime, a criminal assault. Yet they took no details from anyone. They did not investigate it. They only spoke to him because I held on to him. and they did not gather any evidence. All of these are statutory duties, which they can be sacked for failing to do, by the way, and have been. In the case of bleating special interest groups up and down the country, it happens all the time. I let him finally break free of this annoying chat with the person who caught his fleeing criminal for him, and assumed, yes, I really did assume, that what he told me would come to pass, that Joel would go to court and be fined. What do you think happened? I have a friend who took it upon himself to be my contact with the courts for this, and he contacted them, I don't know, 5 to 10 times since that incident for the next few months. And without getting into detail, no such person has been in a courtroom since, and the courts have no information whatsoever about him. Originally, I got him to contact them to make sure that I would know when the case came through, as I was going to supply my footage to the court. A nice admission, several admissions in fact, proudly stating the damage he occurred on Milo when he assaulted him, and proudly stating how he also hoped to help others do the same. If you wanted to push the boat out, you could even maybe try charging him with common assault and conspiracy. He was part of a group. He was acting in order to help incite more violence to take place. He hoped someone else would do it while he had them distracted. You fucking heard it. But even just a court hearing and a small fine, that would have been plenty. But it didn't happen. Remember Truro? Oh, look at him with his hands around his neck. Look at him beating him up. These people are professional victims. We've got to get better at doing it. As wrong as that is, well, sort of. Depends how far you push it. I don't suggest anyone goes beyond just getting what they're supposed to get under law. Just that would be one huge step up. But we have to start complaining and demanding. We are people too. These laws apply to us too. We paid to build them, most of us. And our ancestors thought them up. So, if anyone should have a right to them, we should. And why don't we? Because we don't bitch enough when we don't get them. We need to start kicking off and saying, hey, why did you deny me my rights? Because it's so easy. Because we are so passive, and we are so keen to be the law-abiding ones, which is a great thing in itself. But we are shooting ourselves in the feet all the time, because we're not just asking to have our rights upheld. We're not asking for any special treatment, just the bare minimum. And unless we start demanding it, they can just keep not giving us it. Because it doesn't bother, it doesn't affect them if we don't complain. This whole case won't come back on this officer unless probably Milo, I mean, I suggest everyone writes to them about this shit, but unless Milo, the actual victim, complains under his right to complain as the victim, the stated victim by this offender's admission, then nothing will happen. So, who is this yellow-bellied little twerp who walked away scot-free after admitting to a criminal assault? This is JOEL PUNWANI, a Liberal Democrat political candidate for Exwick, a region of Exeter. So how well does he fit into the Liberal Democrat Party, I wonder? Well, he obviously doesn't believe in democracy, being such an avid supporter that he appears to have no clothes other than yellow ones. It's like a tribal thing, I think. It's like gang colours. It is the central pillar or aim of the Liberal Democrats in 2019 to undo a democratic referendum which voted for Brexit. I know I'm not on their side, so it sounds like everything I say would just be ideologically opposed to them. That's just not the case. I will openly consider any policy of their party, and I wouldn't be trying to find a reason to put it down. If it was a good policy, it'll be a good policy, and I'm sure they've got some. But really, honestly, that's not the point here. I just want to make this point that I really can't fathom how some of the brighter people running the Lib-Dem party have not seen the incredible irony in their name. Why haven't they changed their name? Liberal Democrat? Whilst they seek to undo democracy with every inch of their being, I mean, it's surely verging on mental illness if they can't see how ridiculous this is. They actually managed to convince themselves that they are democratic while attempting to destroy a completely democratic vote, just because it didn't go the way they wanted. That is like the antipode of democracy. It is tyranny, for fuck's sake. That's what tyranny means. It means I get my way no matter what. I don't give a fuck what you want. I'm right. And JOEL PUNWANI is obviously very much at home there. And that stands to reason. He believes in assaulting people in the street when they're legally and peacefully speaking in public about views which he doesn't like. These are all tyrants. I'm not sure they all know it. In fact, I genuinely don't think most of them do know it. They just don't ever look introspectively enough to notice. They don't need to look at themselves. Everyone else is the problem. And this is the inherent danger of this modern leftist ideology. I don't mean the leftist policies or anything like that. We can discuss policies. I just mean the entire worldview they have, the whole view that their opinions are morally superior to everybody else's. And that is why they can be so incredibly deluded, so capable of overlooking the irony of being Democrats by name, but not by nature or action. Talk is cheap. Actions are what count, and their actions, and Joel's too, are the opposite of democracy. As I said before, tolerance only exists when you're putting up with something you do not like or do not agree with. That's where tolerance starts. Here's Joel's Twitter page. YIMBY, I had to look that up. It means yes in my backyard. How many immigrants you got there? It's one of these lefty names for people who will put up with things in their backyard when others won't, i.e. another chance to tell the world how morally superior they are. Isn't it funny how the YIMBY types are always in wealthy white areas? It's so easy to say yes in my backyard when it is not in your back fucking yard. It's so easy because you've got no skin in the game. You don't pay for your opinion. It doesn't cost you anything to have that view. Other people pay for it. It's just like the Brexit vote. And this constantly pisses me off. Now, this point is either deliberately dodged or, when it can't be dodged, they do a hatchet job and spin it. To misrepresent it, obviously. What I'm talking about is the obvious fact that the poorest areas with the most immigrants in the UK overwhelmingly voted to leave the EU. And that's not because they are stupid, as they've been called, or didn't know what they were voting for, as has been said, or because they were too old, every other fucking ridiculous insult there is without actually taking account of the fact that they did know what they were voting for and you just don't like the fact they voted for it. It's because they are clever enough to know exactly what they were voting for. The immigration problem is one mainly caused by, Blair in the first place, who fucked the country for centuries, but perpetuated and made even worse by the EU. This shit we get shoved down our necks by people we don't even elect. But they did have a chance to vote out of the EU, and so they did exactly that. Get over it. I've looked at hundreds of examples of this stuff. But just to take one example, Boston in Lincolnshire, an area with huge EU immigration, the biggest, I think. Boston has been dubbed the most European town in Britain. It has the largest number of non-British EU passport holders outside of London. The most European town in the UK, and in fact the whole of Lincolnshire by extension really, it had the highest Brexit vote in the entire country. Is it just a coincidence that it also has the highest number of foreign-born residents? Really? Yeah, just a coincidence? How about Wigan then? Or Oldham? Or Rochdale? The list goes on and on and on. It's just blatantly obvious that the people who actually live with the consequences of this YIMBY shit of the EU, the people who are actually YIMBYs, whether they wanted to be or not, the people whose backyards do have this stuff in, they voted to get it out of their backyard at the first opportunity they have had for decades. And the Liberal Democrat, undemocratic, tyrannical fucking swines want to even undo that and take that one tiny little voice away from them. That one chance to express their wishes, the true downtrodden working class, the ones who used to be represented by the left. That was the purpose of the left. That's why we needed the left, was for the poor, impoverished, people without a voice. And they pop up and give their little voice and all of a sudden it's shut the fuck up. You're wrong. All you lefties have is the votes of the people you bring into our cramped island. And that's why this war is all about how many you can get in. Because you need more and more and more. And we need less and less and less. You need more of them for votes. We need less of them for life. For our culture to survive. For our kids to speak and live our culture and our values, rather than those of the people you choose to replace us with. you oh so fucking tolerant leftists. You're all about power, nothing more, nothing less. And to keep and grow your power, you need immigrants. Because the average British voter doesn't want your dangerous ideas anywhere near them. It's Financial Times. Welcome to the most pro-Brexit town in Britain. Boston and Lincolnshire voted overwhelmingly to leave after 460% rise in immigration. Well, they should be pleased. This stuff's good for them. Haven't you told them enough? They should know by now. This stuff's really good for them. Enriches their culture, makes life better. Why don't they agree? Coincidence? Or are they just so racist in that town? How come that town's suddenly so racist but other towns aren't? Must be the water or something. The excruciating irony here is the fact that the left should care about these people, and it just doesn't anymore. I just think the poor, that's why the poor have moved. That's why the poor are voting for people like Tommy Robinson and coming out and supporting people like that. They're poor people who are hungry, pissed off, and they want a change. And the mainstream is left, so they want non-mainstream, so they want non-left. That's why the poor have finally woken up, or are starting to anyway, and moving to the right, because the left just doesn't give a shit about them anymore, and it wants them to swallow any shit they push down their throats, and any complaints mean you're a racist. No wonder they've left the left. So how did Joel do in the election? It looks to me like racism has had a resounding democratic victory over tyranny there, Joel. Being such a yimby, I hope you're happy to tolerate things you don't like in your backyard, like Nazis. Would you be a yimby then? The real yimbys, the ones who never call themselves that, are the people who live with the fallout of EU decisions on a daily basis. The EU that you and your party want to ensure we remain a part of, even though the country has told you it doesn't. And what am I talking about anyway? Your backyard? You don't even have a backyard, you cretin. You're a student. You've never owned a house. You've probably never even rented one. You've probably got a little windowsill where you grow soy and TellyTubby health potions. And even that windowsill isn't paid for by you. Well, I looked into this JOEL PUNWANI a little bit. I was curious, genuinely, just confused and curious after meeting him. He's got a few documents online. He's published a few papers. He's done an absolutely horrendous YouTube video. I think if you search on YouTube for JOEL PUNWANI, you might find it. I can't remember what it was about. It's just spun my head. Must be way too high level for me. I had a read of some of these documents just to try and understand a bit more about this character. It drives me around the twist to see what, by all accounts, is a pretty damn intelligent human being. And I don't mind saying that, you know, he's a prick, but he's intelligent, but he's behaving like such a moron. He wrote this piece about UN stuff. He has a bit to do with UN type stuff, student level only, of course. The wannabe new leaders to save our poor world from all the evils in it without considering if it might actually be themselves. Here's the ex-MUN, which is Exeter University's Model United Nations Society. The Exeter University Model United Nations Society, as the name suggests, a debating society. Are you shitting me? That operates as a model of the real UN, with the same procedures and a debating style focused on national policy and political knowledge rather than necessarily your own opinions and rhetorical skills. Do they use milkshake in those debates, I wonder? In our friendly weekly sessions, we'll train you up in the rules of debate used by the UN and give you the opportunity to practice with training debates on everything from... This is just ridiculous. It couldn't be more the opposite of how he behaves. I think we're going to have to email these people. I wonder if the police did. Yeah, they said they did. Should we find out? And what does he say about himself? My name is JOEL PUNWANI and I'm 19 years old. I come from many different places. I have 3 passports. I've lived in 5 countries and parts of my family come from at least 7 nations. Sounds like a badge of honour, doesn't it? Is it okay to just be from one country, Joel? Or are you better than us because you're more worldly wise? If asked where I'm from, though, my short answer is London, the great city to which I always return. Why do you have a short answer to where you're from? Are you not from anywhere? Is that why you're so misguided and lost? And that's why you think everyone who is from somewhere and likes where they're from as racist? Central African Republic. This fostered a great interest in international relations. You are there to start wars, surely? That's the only way you know how to behave. relations. Imagine you in the Bay of Pigs. I've gained interest in other aspects of governance and governing, and to work an intern there at the temple with the Temple of Understanding. I have to look that up, I think. Oh boy. To work an intern there with the Temple of Understanding, which is an interfaith organisation founded in 1960 by mission. This is what they are all about. 4 things. Foster appreciation of religious and cultural diversity. I want to foster your appreciation of my shit. Doesn't it smell lovely? I need to keep fostering your appreciation of it. Expand public discourse on religion and spirituality. Okay. Promote constructive social change. We all know what that is. Your shit. Further education for global citizenship. Well, you just fit in perfectly, don't you? Because you're from 57 different planets. It's frightening. Isn't education for global citizenship? Right, firstly, we don't want to be citizens of the world necessarily. You might want to be, and which is fine, because you can do that. There's aircrafts and you've got a passport. You know, you can be a global citizen if you want. I don't want to be. I like the fact that I'm English, and when I go on holiday to, I don't know, Turkey, I go and experience the rich, vibrant culture of Turkey, and I enjoy it, and I love it, and I make some good friends, and I meet some really interesting people, and I celebrate visiting this different place. That's the diversity for me. It's called a holiday. But then I come back to what I know. Just like you go back to your house, and you probably don't like coming home to find all your furniture's been moved around for you. You like things just the way you made them. Reading a bit about this character, what I found such a shame is that all this apparent rationality and eloquence on display. He writes well. He talks shit, but he writes well. He's obviously learnt about reasoning and stuff, so he's got no excuse of ignorance here. And when the chips are down, where are all those skills? He drops them all and becomes a fascist thug. He wouldn't call himself that because he doesn't identify as one, but he fucking behaves like one. So, walks like duck, quacks like duck, duck. What use is all this knowledge and intellect if you can't even abide by the most basic, common decency? Not to mention legality, the stuff everyone is expected to know and follow, people with half your intelligence. You're a little boy with a very solid capacity for intellectual thought. The little boy part comes out when you find your eloquence fails to turn the whole world to your point of view. Something all you radical lefties struggle with. Becoming at first emotional, then insulting and angry, then criminally violent, then who knows? Your path could lead anywhere that you want it to. You're blessed with privilege, which that green page with the fucking I'm from here and there and everywhere, just reading that's a life of privilege, my friend. That is a privileged child. Travelling the world, go and speak to people in fucking Oldham or Sheffield and see what they've seen. They see their job and their home. A little 2-bed terrace, and maybe a load of Muslims outside telling them there's a new mosque being built. But you're privileged, and you're blessed with a very smart mind, but because of your ideological possession and outright arrogance in your self-righteousness, you're just simply incapable of doing that one most fundamental of things. Respect. Respect for those with different opinions to your own. Do you wonder why the average blue-collar working man and woman increasingly distrust the intellectual elites in Parliament? You are a budding demonstration of the reasons. You preach equality and tolerance, yet you practice the very opposite, having complete disdain for those not as cerebrally gifted as you, and for their opinions. Opinions, by the way, which were forged not in books and theoretical class discussions and models and debating societies with other idealistic, spoon-fed fucking privileged teenagers, but in life, on the streets. I'm sure that once you have had another decade or two on this earth, maybe had some children, bought and sold a house or two, lost a few jobs, or been made redundant once or twice, you just might grow up and see the world as a real place, instead of a theoretical laboratory where you can play around and create your own desired realities with a lash of your tongue and a milkshake. The short version is grow up, Joel, before you become even more dangerously intolerant of fellow human beings. And no, you don't get to say, as I know you will, well, those kinds of people aren't humans. That is a dishonest and gutless cop-out from dealing with the difficulty of facing alternative viewpoints and beliefs in a mature and rational way. You claim to be into multi-faith, etc. How about multi-fucking viewpoints? That's a starter, isn't it? If you could be multi-faith, which are pretty big absolutist beliefs, really, why do you have so much trouble dealing with multi-viewpoints? Not so tolerant there, are you? One day you nutjob lefties will realise that you are just as intolerant as the most right-wing people you despise. You just refuse to tolerate different things. You're no more tolerant, you just tolerate the things you like and refuse to tolerate, or milkshake, the things you don't like. That's the definition of intolerance, and is no different from a real neo-Nazi. Leftism begets fascism. You are living, breathing proof of that fact. And you don't even know it. I bet you got a big career planned. Another Lib-Dem in a man from Del Monte suit, preaching from your high horse about how good you are and how everyone who disagrees with you must be the embodiment of evil, as that saves a real debate, doesn't it? And I bet you thought you could keep your little crime on the down low so it doesn't come back to bite you when you're running for a Lib-Dem leadership contest in God knows how many years to come. After all, nobody will remember this or remember you for this incident. And even the police who so nearly managed to avoid applying the law to you, if they drop the whole thing, then there's no record of it. And nobody needs to know a thing about your little escapade into physical assaults on, oh, who was it now? Oh, yes. An openly gay man in a public place exercising his legally protected right to express an opinion which differs from yours. That was his crimes. You just listed them all there. I hope it was worth it. One of the things you will learn at some point, and I mean it, will, because you'll have to, because everyone does, is that in the real world, actions have consequences. Try as you might, you won't dodge that little law of life. You might have done up till now, in your sheltered, privileged, fucking taxpayer-subsidised existence. Your behaviour, your refusal to respect a fellow person with a different opinion, your refusal to respect the personal safety and property of another individual, indeed one with protected characteristics, will not go unchallenged. Even if the law gives you a pass in our demonstrably two-tier policing system this time, and will certainly not be forgotten. I will ensure the footage of your crime will be published and republished every time your friends in the left-wing establishment remove it. Every time your head pops up on Twitter with another high and mighty claim to holiness, I'll swoop in with a reminder to anyone who may be following your tripe that you are no better than the worst of those you despise. The only difference is you believe you are a fucking saint, when most adults quickly learn that such people rarely exist, and when they do, they certainly don't come in the form of a person who attacks people in the street and then boasts about it afterwards. Well done, Joel. I trust you'll soon learn that even your actions will have consequences for you. Just as the great Martin Luther King said, people should be judged by the content of their character, and you've shown everyone yours. So we can now judge you properly. Way to go, Councillor Punwani.